Ark by Thomas Keneally and the Spielberg film inspired by it, Schindler's List, brought to the world versions of the story of Oskar Schindler, a double-dealing Nazi party industrialist whose actions saved more than 1,000 Jews. But plans to turn his now derelict textile plant, which was the only Nazi concentration camp in Czechoslovakia and where he's reputed to have planned his act of heroism, into a museum to Schindler, have run into opposition. There are other versions of the Schindler story which are much more complex, and for some Czechs, the fact that their countryman was a Nazi spy is a reason not to commemorate him.
And Wolf. How many? 600.
His name is synonymous throughout the world with heroism. Nazi businessman Oskar Schindler, played here by Liam Neeson in Spielberg's classic Schindler's List, was portrayed in the film as an almost saintly figure. But the real Oskar Schindler, it seems, may not have been quite so virtuous. His factory, which once saved the lives of more than 1,000 Jews, now lies derelict. But plans to turn it into a museum have met opposition in what is now the Czech Republic. Schindler, who spied on Czechoslovakia for the Germans before World War II, is accused of being a national traitor. He's remembered by many as a drinker, a womanizer and a crook. One writer has even accused him of lying about his role in saving Jews. That Schindler was no saint is not disputed. He was, after all, a prominent Nazi. But, say his defenders, a flawed character did not prevent him from performing saintly deeds. So, have we been hoodwinked by Hollywood into believing a crook was a hero? Or do the imperfections in his character only serve to make his story all the more remarkable? Well, Dr. Helen Fry is a historian and honorary research fellow at University College London. Good evening to you, first of all. Do you understand why there is this conflict over the establishing of a museum to him?
Yes, the difficulty is the character of Oskar Schindler, very complex. But of course he is also viewed as like a traitor, really, because he was spying for Germany as a Czech national. So he was, what now would be Czech Republic.
In the 30s?
In the 30s, and in the run-up to 1938, 1939, before Germany overran Czechoslovakia in March 1939.
And was also, apparently, though this hasn't been confirmed, involved in the plans for the invasion of Poland.
Yes, absolutely. And he was arrested by the Czech government, what was then Czechoslovakia, and by the time of the Munich Agreement in September 1938, when the Sudetenland was given over to Germany, he was released, which is actually remarkable as part of that agreement.
So, but in 1993, not as the film says earlier, Yad Vashem, he had his title of righteous Gentile.
Yes.
The Jews recognised his heroism. So is that not enough now?
Well, in his lifetime, which is quite rare, because often Yad Vashem recognises people after they've passed on, because it takes a long time to be recognised, and you need eyewitnesses. And that's the crucial thing, I think, in this story, and one of concern with the passing of the eyewitnesses, how these stories, not just Schindler, but others like him, how they'll be told.
Interestingly, so it's as if, I mean, it's slightly counterfactual, isn't it, that the eyewitness stories are now being denied by some people, and yet you think eyewitness was the best form of testimony?
Yes, I think there's a very worrying development in what was the former Eastern Bloc, so in the Czech Republic, and I've also seen it in Sachsenhausen concentration camp north of Berlin, and of course that was behind the Iron Curtain at one point. This denial of Jewish suffering, in Sachsenhausen for example, when I was filming for a school project, a denial that Jews actually died there, or they suffered there.
And that was actually being expressed quite openly.
I was told to stop filming. We had to stop filming. And that was quite a shock and very disturbing. And you kind of do a double check about your facts as a historian. You think, no, I've interviewed people who survived, Jews who survived Sachsenhausen. So you kind of know, but of course, it's mainly a tribute to Russian suffering, actually, Sachsenhausen. Well,
Sachsenhausen, but I was wondering why you think that in the former Eastern Bloc and the former Soviet Union countries, that there has been an upswing in this kind of revisionism.
Yeah, I think more studies need to be carried out into whether this is part of a trend of rise in anti-Semitism or whether it's just a kind of anti-Jewish you know, it's not based on historical reality. That's the danger. And when you have it coming from the mouthpiece of Czech politicians, it's very dangerous because, of course, they're respected.
Though the other way to put it would be on the balance, and what some Czechs would say is there's absolutely no doubting that he saved so many Jews, but actually what he did as a traitor to our country means that we do not want to have him lauded in his own land because he was such a traitor in the run-up to the Second World War, that it's about a balance.
It is, but interestingly, The Guardian reported today about one of the Czech MPs who's come out publicly and said there is no evidence that Schindler saved Jews. So, you know, that is very, very concerning, that this, you know, that shift towards what is essentially an anti-Semitic Holocaust denial story. So we have to be alert, I think. We have to be guardians of memory. We have to not assume in every generation that these stories are safe.
Do you think this museum will be built out of the ruins of the textile factory?
I hope so. I hope there'll be enough people, East and West, that will come together to make it happen.
Thank you very much indeed.